you. All right, if everyone's ready, we're going to start. All right, good evening and welcome to the April 3rd meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and is also being broadcast by FCTV on cable channel 9. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. At the moment, we're missing one commissioner. However, we have a quorum. We're moving forward. Just a reminder, for commenting, I'll call on each of you in turn, so let's not speak over each other. And that all votes are done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote for the record, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. If you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct, and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the Commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project may proceed as proposed. However, a positive determination means that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do in fact apply and/or may require some conditions. Therefore, the project would require a notice of intent application. So as an applicant, you want to hear a negative determination. For the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing tonight, and so that you're not waiting unnecessarily, the following hearings are expected to be continued. Number 50 Landfall and number 196 Metoxet Road. All right, first up are vote minutes, March 20, 2024. Betsy.
So before I put a motion in, I have some corrections on page 7 and 8. It was things that had been continued previously, and then they come down into the order, and it says this item was previously approved, but it wasn't approved, it was continued. So there are 3 of them.
Okay.
Kristen, did you get that?
Maybe if you could email them in.
All right.
Betsy, and then
I'll send them to Alyssa.
Yeah, and we'll make sure Kristen gets them.
I'll second.
So do you want to wait for the corrections, or do you want to?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
But it should say continued, not approved.
Got it.
Harlow Hawk second with those corrections.
Okay. All right, and I'm going to skip over Kevin. You weren't at this meeting, and I'm going to skip over Ron. You weren't at that meeting. All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes with corrections. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney, did you hear that?
All right.
Corrections.
I didn't hear the minutes, so I'll abstain.
Okay. Matthews, aye. Maury.
Harlow Hawk's aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous with a quorum of 4. We have accepted the minutes of March 20th with corrections. Next up, request for a continuance under a notice of intent. Rami and Renea Assad, 50 Landfall, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a 1-car garage and install mitigation plantings. Alyssa, I believe this is you.
Yes, so the applicant has requested a continuance until April 17th in order to make some changes to the plan to accommodate suggestions from the association. So it sounds like they were able to have a meeting and chat with the association. Just so you guys know, in terms of the 17th, for notices, you have 3 new notices, 2 AOCs, and 4 continueds, 2 of which had not been opened.
Yeah, so we should avoid any more additions to that night,
I agree.
after this at least.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue this one until April 17th.
Carla
Bird,
Hawk,
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until April 17th. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until April 17th. Next up, again, another continuance request. Nathan Pieri, 196 Metoxet Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling with a deck, porches, and rinse station, relocate an outbuilding and shed, and install dry wells. Alyssa.
The applicant has requested a continuance until April 17th. In terms of the 24th, all you have so far are 2 continued notices.
Okay, let's put it for the 24th.
So moved, Carla Hawks.
Felter,
Bird,
second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this until April 24. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until April 24th. Next up are requests for determination of applicability.
I have
First
to
up.
abstain.
First, please.
Recuse. Yeah.
First up, Arthur M. Hawks, 42 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to pump, dry, fill, and abandon a failed cesspool and to install a new Title V sewage disposal system. And for the record, Maury has recused from this. Fallon,
All right, staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Gladfelter,
Patton,
second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous with 1 recusal. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you. Next up, John Drewley, 313 Minot Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a single-family dwelling and install a Title V sewage disposal system. Fallon,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed. And this project solely takes place in a flood zone.
Thank you. Bird, so moved. Patton,
O'Brien, second.
oh, we need some competition for the seconds here. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Lauren P. Hayes, 5 Settlers Path, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct an addition, raise, RAZE, and reconstruct a garage and install a new Title V sewage disposal system. Fallon,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed. This project is solely in a flood zone.
thank you.
Thank you. Bird, so moved.
Carla Hawk's second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Ben, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Frederick Ellis, 102 Nashawina Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to grandfather an existing dock. Fallon,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move, and could you give a few details?
I can elaborate on that, Courtney. So in looking at aerials, the dock has been on the property since at least 1975. They do have a DEP license, but since a new homeowner has bought the property and their 1-year transference has lapsed, they're now applying for a new Chapter 91. And since they've been there so long, they don't have a local permit.
Okay,
Carlo
so
Hawks.
this gives them the local permit.
Yeah, and it'll help them get that new license.
Okay. I'll, did I, no,
you made the motion. I'm looking for a
Okay.
second.
Carlo Hawks second.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Ben, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Just a reminder, you guys, that the staff sends out the staff reports even for the RDAs. So a lot of times, that some of that explanation is on there,
Yeah,
and some of the ones that are only in a flood zone, just so we know why it's why it's an RDA and not a notice. Next up, Barry Family Trust, 48 Beach Street, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove the existing failed sewage disposal system and to install a new system to meet Title V standards. Fallon,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed. This project is fully in a flood zone.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks second.
thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Ben, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Gordon Thompson, 18 Millfield Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install dormers. Fallon,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Ben, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you for that. Next up are continued requests for a hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. Please know that all correspondence received by the Conservation Department is forwarded to all commissioners and becomes part of the record. We will not read each and every letter we receive at a hearing. Remember, our jurisdiction is that of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Bylaw. First up, well, the first one's been previously continued. Brings us to second up. Thomas Fanning, McAnsett Yacht Club, 237 County Road and 0 Pine Bank off, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to pump dry and remove the existing cesspool and to install a new Title V sewage disposal system and to request variances from FWR 10.38 3B2 and 10.38 3B5. 10.38 3C2 and 10.38 4B1. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. I have promoted Hannah Radatz to continue presenting her project. Hannah, is there anyone else that I'm promoting?
I don't believe so. I don't believe the applicant, Thomas Fanning, is in the audience tonight. So I think it's just me.
Okay.
Okay, Hannah, if I could interrupt you just real quick. The quorum excludes Courtney, Steve, and Ron. This is a continued hearing.
You kind of faded there for a second, Jamie. Did you say Courtney,
Okay.
Ron, and
Courtney, Steve, and Ron.
We're off the clock. Yeah.
yes?
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Hannah.
So I will keep this presentation brief. The commissioners received a copy of a letter submitted which responds to all of the questions and revisions to the latest revised plan for this project. I can just go through each of these items and then I'll open it back up to the commissioners for any additional questions. So the raised infiltration system was required to be fully contained by a retaining wall because there was a concern about a blowout from behind during a storm event. The soil infiltration area has now been fully surrounded with a retaining wall. So that was complied with and is reflected on the revised plans. The next item is the plan details regarding the wall should specify only the proposed wall type. So the proposed wall type was limited to, I believe.
Hannah, could you share the plans,
Oh, yep, no problem.
please?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Awesome. So this is the raised soil absorption system that I was mentioning last time and the retaining wall, which is to be fieldstone with height varying. This will completely contain the raised system. In addition, we needed to add the power source for the septic system to the plan. That was added to the plan. The power for the sewage pump is via feed from one of the spare circuits at the existing electric panel in the building located in the southwest corner. The proposed electrical conduit was added to the plan with a note regarding that. Additionally, the first floor elevation of the yacht club was requested to be added and to label the finished grade of the parking lot once the new layer of asphalt was added. Those notes were also added to the plan. There was a concern about compost material that was referring to the silt stalks or the compost stalks that were proposed as sediment controls on the site. I believe, according to the agent's report, we missed another comment on that. It's not intended that the sediment controls will be left on the site or material ripped up and deposited, nor any sediment that is trapped during any dewatering necessary. all materials involved in sediment control and potentially in any dewatering on the site will be removed, so that comment will be removed from the plan. Additionally, there was a request to change the rain garden. So because of where the dense rugosa rose shrub line is around here, we broke up the rain garden into 2 sections so that no vegetation removal will occur to install this rain garden. The various species that we proposed include northern bayberry, dense St. John's wort, sweet fern, bearberry, and switchgrass. Most of these plantings were taken from CZM example planting for coastal banks and coastal dunes. So that's where the decisions for these plants came from. And this doesn't include the cedar trees. The cedar trees were relocated to these areas right here, this circle with the plus sign in the middle. This is where the proposed red cedars will be placed to replace the one tree that will be removed to install the soil absorption system. There was a request to add additional resource areas associated with land under ocean, land containing shellfish, and land containing eelgrass. That was added to the plan. There was a request to provide a copy of the plans submitted to the Falmouth Health Department. These plans did not require any variances. So a copy of the plans were were enclosed with the submission of this application. And as I mentioned, the approval did not require a variance for a Title V from the Board of Health Falmouth. And the final note was confirming that the pitch of the parking lot was towards the eastern edge, which is where the rain garden is proposed. So the proposed spot grades have been added to the site plan in the same location as the existing spot grades. They're a little bit darker for clarity on the revised plans. These spot grades indicate that the stormwater flow is towards the north and east, which is consistent with heading towards the parts of the property that we want to capture that stormwater, being the catch basin and the rain garden. Apologies for all the pausing in there. I will go ahead and open up to the commissioners to see if there's any questions. And I know the plan is quite detailed, so let me know if there's any zooming in I need to do.
Excellent. Thank you, Hannah. All right. Alyssa.
We do have a comment in the chat with someone here representing Mr. Fanning. So I can promote them as a panelist if they would like to say anything to the board on behalf of the applicant. If you can just raise your hand, sir, if you'd like to be promoted. Thank you. Hannah, you may want to stop sharing just for the moment in case he needs to share anything. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, you have anything?
No, I don't have anything. We're going to, I'm going to let Hannah answer the questions in regards to the yacht club.
All right. Once again, Alyssa, you're up.
Thank you. Hannah has addressed most of our comments. Just wanted to let you know, Hannah, we've been keeping an eye on the switchgrass. We've just seen it on a couple of properties where it's really taken over. So we probably wouldn't want to see it in the rain garden here. And then some of the other plantings the board typically doesn't permit for projects like mitigation. So it's up to the board if you are content with those species in the voluntary rain garden. Thank you.
All right. Fallon.
No additional comments. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments. Betsy.
No questions or comments. Thanks, Jamie. And thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.
Yes, I concur. Thank you, Hannah, for addressing all staff's concerns. Kevin,
Staff is okay. I'm fine, thank you.
all right. Maury,
I just had two questions. Are the trees too close to the property line? And that would probably be Alyssa's call. Usually you like them a little further away. Because it's pretty much on the property line.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how, in general, when we see these plans and we have circles drawn where the trees are, I'm not quite sure at what status of maturity those represent. But typically our guidance is, at least 5 feet off a property line, 5 feet from another tree.
Okay.
Just so that when they grow and they start hanging over, they don't get cut in half.
Exactly. And then to Hannah, so you do have your Board of Health permit.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
all right. All right. Alyssa, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There is one thing in the public chat, not for this hearing. I missed it before for Mike Borselli for one of his continuances. He can't accommodate that date, but I can chat with him later about that.
Okay, for none for this hearing.
Correct.
All right. Hannah, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point?
So just so I caught Alyssa's recommendations for the cedar plantings, they should be 5 feet off of the property line, and how far apart?
I'd say at least 5 feet, just so they have a
Okay.
little room to breathe.
I
More if
believe
possible.
I believe that is the case, but they are quite close. So we'll make sure that that's the case, and if not, then the plan will be revised to reflect that.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think we can condition that. I don't think we need a revised plan for our purposes.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Knowles, you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I would not.
Okay. All right. Any more questions or comments from the board?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Carla Hawk, second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're voting to close the hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carla Hawk's eye.
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have closed this hearing. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Mr. Nunes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Good night.
All right, the next hearing has been previously continued. Brings us to Mark Romaine, 45 Toby Lane, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to renovate the existing house, construct a detached garage and parking court, install a pool, upgrade the existing sewage disposal system to an IA system, and install mitigation plantings. And before anyone goes, the quorum excludes Kevin, Ron. So Alyssa.
Thank you. I promoted Mike Borselli and Angela Tanner to finish presenting their project.
All right, Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, for the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant along with Angela Tanner from Crawford Land Management. Angela's here with me tonight, and this is a continued hearing. We presented our project at the initial hearing. We received the staff report. We received comments and questions from you. We continued the hearing. We made revisions to the plans in response to your requests and in response to the comments in the initial staff report. And I submitted the plans from my office along with Angela's revised plans. And with your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Should be sharing
Killer dogs.
the dogs, sorry. Let me try that again. How's that? Ah.
You can't see anybody. You can't see them all.
What?
So the plans were fairly straightforward. They included, we added an area of crushed stone that was existing on the site with some patio blocks along this edge of the existing house. Those had not been permitted, and they appeared sometime between 2017 and now. So we're going to remove that because it wasn't granted permission, and either bark mulch it or put grass. Secondly, we added the existing AC units, which are shown here. They're mounted to the building, and they're about 4 feet above grade. And they're these little boxes here. We revised the summary of impervious surfaces to include this little box here, which was an existing rinse station that was not permitted. But it doesn't move closer to the wetland resources. It should have been requested. It wasn't, but I believe it could have been permitted. It doesn't move closer than the closest point of the present primary structure. So we've modified the impervious surface calculations and the mitigation to accommodate that. We added 2 existing trees that we had not labeled on the plan. One is in this area here, and one is over here in this white area between the proposed mitigation, which is shaded in green. We also calculated the volume of fill required to do the regrading along this landscape wall and the grading in general on the site. And we calculated that to be estimated at 100 cubic yards. We were also asked to note the portions of the structure that are new or also would be considered additions. We identified a 60 square foot section of the proposed porch that is shown within the FEMA designated velocity zone, which is a velocity zone, 60 square feet. And we also identified the rinse station as well. So those two combined to be 79 square feet. And your regulations allow for up to, but not to exceed 200 square feet. I think that sums up my plan revisions, and I'm happy to turn it over to Angela, and then we're both here to answer questions.
Thanks, Mike. Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela Tanner from Genic Studio Crawford Land Management, and with your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
So the revisions on the mitigation plan are very minor. Just trying to get this to show up. Can you see the plan? It looks like
it's regenerating.
It's regenerating. Okay, I'll stop moving it. So we moved around the trees just a little bit, the replacement trees, into areas that didn't infringe as much on the canopies of, moved the proposed replacement trees to where they were not infringing on existing tree canopy as much. And we added notes about allowing the agent or other administrative staff to come to the site and verify the locations prior to installation. And we also switched one of the cedar trees to an understory tree where it's kind of close to this existing oak, just because those branches are so so sprawling. It would sit underneath the canopy instead of competing with it. And then also at Alyssa's request, we added another tree to this northern property line. And then we just basically made sure that the mitigation areas matched Mike's calculations for the rinse station and the required mitigation. So those are the only changes that we made from the last hearing.
All right. All right. Alyssa,
Thank you. Just a thank you to Mike and Angela for making all the corrections, and I have no other comments at this time. Thank you.
all right. Fallon,
No further comments. Thank you.
all right. Commissioner comments or questions? Courtney? Courtney? All right. Courtney, you there?
Yep.
The comments? Am I breaking up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Do you have any comments, Courtney?
No comment. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Again, Mike and Angela, thank you for the corrections or clarifications. Maury?
I was very happy to see the caliper inches and everything on the plan. It was really nice. And the only thing is we should make sure that there's the square footage in our findings, that there's only a little bit left for the V zone for, for expansion in the future. And it was a very nicely corrected plan. And thank you for all those.
Great, thank you.
Steve?
I didn't have any more questions. Thank you for responses.
Okay. Betsy?
No comments or questions. Thanks, Jamie and Angela and Mike.
All right. Alyssa, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There are no hands raised and one comment in the chat for the next hearing.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
No.
I'll make a
Mike
motion.
or Angela, anything you'd like to add?
Nope.
They
right.
want me to make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement. They want to go home.
Burn second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's nothing else, we're voting to close the hearing. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Burn aye.
Matthews, aye. Maury?
Arlo Hawk's eye.
Steve?
Madden, aye.
It is unanimous with this quorum. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night and look out for puddles. Bye-bye.
Or small
Night.
ponds on the road.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Ciari Huberu, trustee, Huberu Trust, 110 Ransom Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling, install a new Title V sewage disposal system, and install mitigation plantings. And though this is a continued hearing, it has not been opened, so the quorum is all of us here tonight. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. I've promoted Mark Dibb to present his project.
Excellent. Mr. Dibb, you're up, sir.
Good evening, Commission. Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant at 110 Ransom Road, Huberu Trust, for the project tonight. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
So to begin, I'll review the existing conditions of the site and then go through the proposed project. The existing site is an existing house. It's a unique site. It's up on a hill, surrounded to the west by Ransom Road. To the south is a gravel driveway that wraps around and serves the properties at 112 from this direction, I believe 106 over in this direction, there's a paved driveway and there is an access road that does wrap around the site. Outside of that, to the west is a BVW. It's actually associated with wetlands that tie through some connections to the north, up and around under Ransom Road and out to Oyster Pond. Then to the east is some wetlands that border directly on Oyster Pond to the east. And as well, there is a flood zone that wraps around the site due to the elevation. It's AE flood zone 12. For most of the flood zone, it's basically at the limit of the driveway. In this area, it's partly up the slope. So that leads to the other resource area, which is a coastal bank. On the easterly portion of the site, the coastal bank does continue past the flood zone line because of the slope. It's more than a 1 to 4 slope, so it ends in this area. And in other areas, that steep slope doesn't start till after the flood zone line. So the coastal bank is lower around the edge of the driveway that's on the property. The existing house was built approximately in the 1960s per assessor's data. Has an existing cesspool on the site. The walls that are at the site seem to be placed, boulder walls. There are boulders on the property. And the results of test pits that we did, there is evidence that the plateau that the house sits on was filled in the past. We did find about 5 or 6 feet of fill in this area of the test pits. So we do believe that a lot of this hill was altered to build the original house in the 60s. As well, a lot of the area around the house is vegetated with rhododendron, pretty large rhododendron, and then also the trees that are shown in the plan. I'm going to go to the proposed conditions. So we've shown a side-by-side of existing to proposed conditions. So the project is to demolish the existing house and propose a new house. At elevation wise, vertical wise, it'll be at the same elevation. It's a slightly longer house, but a little bit narrower. You can see the limits of the existing house. It's centered and placed atop this landmass with enough room to install a septic system in the existing pavement area, which will be an upgrade from the existing cesspool. We will be able to get some roof drains for runoff, to collect runoff. Another structural aspect of this house, and I'm not a structural engineer, but there is the double line, I'll try to trace it with the cursor. That is the limit of the full foundation basement. And then what this house also has some wing walls that are basically, I believe they're being used in lieu of sonotubes to support some expanded first floor and second floor areas. So basically at the end of each one of these areas is a column, that supports a first floor above and then a second floor. So there's a little bit of kind of different structural aspects as well. This existing boulder wall will be replaced with an engineered retaining wall in this area. And then there's 2 wing walls that will come off of the foundation to be able to provide at least a small level area that'll be used as a grass or a vegetated sitting area. I guess I hadn't touched on the buffer zones. There's basically the A buffer zone because of being adjacent, the wetlands, and being wetlands that are included, although the site is not in NHESP, the wetland is, so there's a full 100-foot A zone. Covers most of the site. You'll see there's a little triangle in the middle that has a B zone. So the overall expansion per se of development is about 300 square feet, a little more than 300 square feet. There's a table on this plan. In that we are proposing mitigation to offset that. What that will be doing is removing some of those rhododendron, as well as just putting back native shrubs and trees and plantings that might help this bank more than the vegetation that is there. We have applied to Board of Health. We basically require a setback. The only relief we need from the Board of Health is setback to coastal bank. That's a variance we would need even just to repair under the existing house. I think the fact that this bank traverses along this side of the house, no matter what to install or upgrade a septic system, we would be within the Title V requirement of 50 feet to a coastal bank. Currently, it's an existing 3-bedroom site, and we're proposing 3-bedroom. So, but we have filed, the hearing is later this month on that for the septic system. But again, we're not increasing flow. We're remaining to design a 3-bedroom system. We feel it does meet all the different criteria. You know, based on vertical separation, it needs to be a certain distance away from wetlands. And we do meet all those other criteria for the Board of Health. So we do feel that confident that, you know, we have to be able to repair the cesspool. And this is the best location for that, as well as even groundwater flow is to the south. So we're more than 100 feet in the direction of groundwater flow to BVW. We feel that there's no other places to site the septic system. We did receive a number of comments from staff. And responded to them. I think a couple of them were just to clarify, you know, some details on this plan, especially related to the house, those things I covered, where the different levels, you know, this is the basement level, this is the first floor, and then the second floor, some things like that. I think we needed some clarification. The staff did note I noticed 2 trees that were topped previously in the past. We've identified those on a plan and a sketch to the owner and saying that is not allowed, and we've been very clear on that. It's as far as I could tell, there was a 4-inch, 2 trees over in this area that appeared to have been modified or cut. Again, we clarified some items on the coastal bank. There was one outstanding comment that came in. This is a very tight site, especially if you visited it. And, you know, we provided a limit of work. We would agree to a chain link fence as well along the limit of work. And I think what that is doing is protecting surrounding areas from either a boulder that might get dislodged a little bit, you know, at least and construction materials. We definitely will be demolishing this building, the existing house, from the north to the south, and then rebuilding from the south back to the north. We know it's a tricky site for material storage, but that would have to take place, you know, in the available areas, and they would have to just, you know, as materials needed, it would have to be brought to the site. With that, I'd be happy to send it back to the commission. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Alyssa,
Thank you. Just a couple comments. Thanks, Mark, for acknowledging the chain link fence. That was one of our concerns, being such a tight site, like you said. To start with the mitigation area to the east, we don't really have concerns with. I realize that one rhododendron is coming out. I'm not sure how you could avoid not taking out given the construction of the work, so I don't think that area would not be suitable for mitigation. That said, the one to the south, I had a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out what vegetation might be removed during the construction process and the limit of work. And it's a little shaded down there. So if that mitigation area is approved, probably shade tolerant plantings would be most appropriate, like under the tree canopies. The staff's main concern is just that it is a really tight site. It's a larger structure. It is encroaching a bit more into the zone A, which is typically contrary to what we see, especially that limit of work extending into the zone A. I think the chain link fence will be really helpful in keeping any materials within the construction site. But it is going to be encroaching more into the zone A, and I understand a lot of that plant matter is just really overgrown rhododendrons. So up to the board on how they feel about that. Thank you.
all right. Fallon,
No additional comments. Thank you.
all right. All right, commissioner comments or questions? Oh, I'm up. Hey, Mark, can you clarify, you said access road around the bottom, is that an actual road? Is that part of Ransom Road, or is that a private driveway?
It is a private driveway.
Okay. And do you know, is Ransom Road private or public?
It is private, I believe.
Thank you. All right. Kevin,
No comments. Thank you.
Maury,
Well, moving closer into the A zone, I'd like to see all that area restored. I know it's rhododendrons currently, but we frown upon moving closer or doing any more work in the A zone. It is a tight site, but it's not, you've also increased the house by almost double, so you could have reduced the house and avoided that problem. I do like the chain link fence a lot. I think that's a really practical approach on this lot. And I'm gonna save any more questions after, if I have some more. Thank you.
I agree with that. All right, Ron.
No questions.
All right, Steve.
I'm sorry, but it's been too long since I went out to the site. I don't like the increases in the A zone, and that's my bottom line.
All right. Betsy.
So Mark, how much cut and fill is going to happen? It looks like you're going to be spreading out to the south. Are you filling in there?
So I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna share my screen one more time here.
Yes. Zooming
in a little bit so we can get. So on the north side, we're basically matching the existing garage grade or
Yep.
existing pavement grade. On the south side, we're actually, if you're talking cut and fill, so what this is, these two walls are creating a level area at elevation 18, we'll say 18.6, where the existing grade is 22 and 24. So this first portion of the site will be a cut, which will create material. And then there will be, where this slopes off, there'll be an area of this 28, 26, that'll actually be foundation as well. That'll be excess material coming out. I think in general, I believe the site is going to create material. So overall, it'll be a cut site. We have not specifically quantified cut and fill though.
Yeah, well, can I ask you to do that and
Okay.
submit it to the record? And so how is this going to be sequenced? I mean, you have to take the old house out, and then where you're doing the foundation. Does the present house have a foundation? Is there a
Yes, it
hole
does.
there? There's a basement?
Correct.
So you'll take all that out. So the first thing you're going to do is regrade the whole area?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks, Mark.
All right, you good
Yeah.
now? Okay. Courtney,
I have nothing further to add. No questions.
all right. I'm wondering if we should be looking for a methodology plan.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
it might be helpful. Sounds like you have it in your head, Mark. So I don't know. For one, I'm going to ask for that for a process, a methodology. All right, Betsy.
I have another question about the chain link fence. Is that going to be a permanent chain link fence? No, it's going to be marking the limit of work until no boulders are coming downhill.
Yes, yes, it'll be temporary. Yeah, hopefully, the contractor's doing his job and not allowing boulders to roll down the hill, but any kind of construction debris as well.
Yeah, but it'll be removed once everything's finished.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Alyssa, anything in the public chat function, please?
Yes, so the first chat is Bob Ament and Joe Pickrilli wish to speak, and so I will promote them to panelists.
Jamie, while they're being promoted, one quick question. Has the contractor been selected?
Is what?
The contractor been selected for this project?
I'm not aware. I can find that answer out.
That would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, I think the methodology would be more important. Kevin, do you have your hand up?
No, I think it's about to be answered.
All right. Bob, do you want to start?
Yeah, I don't see my picture, but I guess maybe you see
Oh, we
me.
see you.
We see you, Bob.
And I'd like to introduce Joe Pickrilli, who's a professional engineer and with High Point Engineering, and he will begin this discussion.
Sure, I'll take over. So as Bob mentioned, we're representing the Dowlings over at 106 Ransom Road, who are just to the east. And they just have some general questions and comments. Basically, we looked at the size of the project, it being up on a hill. We just have some general concerns about the increased size in the building. It looks like it's right up to the maximum allowed size of zoning. I know that's not to the purview of the Conservation Commission. I just want to point out that we're really maxing out the site here of what is allowed. Also because we're increasing the size of the building. I see that they are proposing a couple of dry wells. I just had a question on how those were sized. It looks like there's only about 50 cubic feet of storage proposed in those two dry wells, so I'm not sure it's going to take more than a fraction of an inch of the proposed roof area. So I know it's generally not required for a single family project, but I was wondering if there was any pre to post hydrology studies done for this project, just to make sure that the applicant won't be causing any additional runoff to the abutters. Thought that might be important, especially with this being up on a hill. Also had a comment about providing a chain link fence, which sounds like it's going to be provided. I think, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned requesting a methodology plan, and that was one of our comments as well. If we could see some sort of construction sequencing on how this is going to be done. Again, it looks like the septic system is pretty close to the minimal allowed breakout area. So again, we believe, striking down the building might just provide a little bit more room for leaching field and additional drainage infiltration. So Bob, did you have anything else you might want to add?
I do, Joe. Thank you. So this project was initially proposed some weeks ago as a 4-bedroom project, and of course, a 4-bedroom septic system, and it also proposed a denitrification septic system. And subsequently, the project was changed to describe the house as only 3 bedrooms, but the house wasn't changed at all. We don't have floor plans to be able to look and see what the layout is, to see if it's really easily used as a 4-bedroom house. And I think that the Conservation Commission, given how tight this site is and those septic system issues, should request floor plans for the house. Now, I don't think that the existing conditions plan shows the location of the cesspool, but we presume that it's farther away from the coastal bank than the proposed septic system. And the proposed septic system is only 15 feet from the top of the coastal bank, where Title V requires 50, and the wetland and the Falmouth Title V requires 100 feet. Knowing where the existing septic system and how much closer to the top of the bank the new system is relevant. And again, I think that the commission has the authority to require a denitrification septic system, and this is a case in which it'd be appropriate. I note that our clients, the Dowlings, who live below this property, when they reconstructed their house, they did install a denitrification septic system 8 years ago. Dr. Dowling was a founder of the Oyster Pond Environmental Trust, and he's very concerned about we've been trying to get people to do denitrification, and it should be required in this case. We don't think there should be any increase that extends the structure into the A zone, into the no build area. How you can expand the existing house into the A zone. As Joe has said, I think that the methodology that's requested, the sequencing, it should also include a stormwater management plan, given the particulars of this site. There's a history of runoff onto the Dowling property. There's a history of boulders coming down that that bank, in addition to the fact that there's been a topping of trees on the Dowling property without permission from the Dowlings, let alone the commission. In any case, question is everything being done to minimize the impacts of this house, and would limiting the size of the house help to be able to manage the impacts, the increased flows on the site, and help to protect the Dowlings from adverse impacts. The Dowlings support the construction of a new house on this property, but are just concerned that the expansion of this house may cause them problems. We'd certainly like, because the chain link fence is simply shown on the plan, make it clear as a condition, should an order of conditions be issued, that it is temporary. I think those are the comments that I have. And there was also some concern that some of the mitigation planting is actually in areas that are already vegetated. So that's really not appropriate, but it also goes to the size of the house and the limited areas that are available to comply with the regulations. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alyssa, are there any other comments or questions in the public chat function, please?
There was just one additional comment from Bob. Bob, I'm not quite sure what we were talking about at that time, but you wrote there is no driveway in that location.
Yeah, the driveway, there is no existing driveway that wraps around the south and southeast side of the house. That's a vegetated area in its location where it's on the Dowling property, and there's no easement in that area.
Excellent.
Thank you for clarifying.
All right. Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point?
Yeah, I'd just like to confirm a couple things, but I'll just go down my list of items, provide some information on cuts and fills, a construction methodology. First and foremost, maybe if it's available, identify a builder, but I think the construction methodology is where we're going on that point. The other technical things, some dry well sizing, we can look into that. Notes regarding the chain link fence, existing septic system. And then I think two of the bigger items are the just existing versus proposed septic floor plans. If that's something we do want to, you are requesting, we can provide those. And then lastly, I think the size of the house, encroachments into a zone, I think what we can try to look at is definitely, even though slightly reconfigured, the house right now is wider than this proposed house. You know, maybe we can try to get to a no increase of structure on this property. I definitely realize that that's a concern of multiple of the commission members. So we can take a look at that as well. Basically, at this point, I would request a continuance.
All right, before we go there, I want to see if there's any more questions or comments from the board. All right, Alyssa?
Just a comment, wondering if the board is amenable to seeing any restoration plantings proposed on the property if the structure is encroaching into the Zone A vegetation. I think in the area, Mark, where the beech tree is coming down, you know, there's not really any understory or overstory right there, except for a couple trees. And perhaps there are other parts of the property that could benefit from some more shrub material, but just wanted to put that into the record.
Okay, Maury?
I will reiterate that encroaching into the A zone and taking out vegetation is not what we allow. So it is allowed, then I would agree with Alyssa that we get some restoration planting there that's substantial. And it is a very, it's a lot of potential for bad erosion there. So I would have to agree with the dry well sizing in the soils to make sure that they're capable of taking all that runoff from the roof, and that the ground itself is not going to become a sheeting off into the lower people's yards. That you are supposed to contain it on your own site. Thank you.
All right. Courtney?
I think that, just want to make sure I see some house plants. That was a good suggestion by Bob on that.
All right. Alyssa, what do we have for a date for Mr. Dibb?
Let me take a look.
Actually, I should ask Mark, how much time do you think you need?
Yeah, I was looking at your calendar. I think it'd be safer to go to the 4/24 hearing, if that's okay.
That would be your fourth continuance for the night.
Oh, yeah, that,
No, four.
That would make 4 continued hearings on the 24th, just so you know.
And how many new ones do you have?
I don't have any as of yet. Today was the first filing day.
Then let's go with the 4/24 and we'll cap it there for continuances. How's that?
Sure
That makes
thing.
sense. Okay. So Mark, 4/24 is okay?
yes, sir.
All right.
At the request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to move, to continue this to April 24th.
Third, second.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until April 24th. Thank you, Mr. Dibb. Thank you, Mr. Piccarelli, Mr. Ament.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bear with me one second. All right. Next up are requests to extend an existing order of conditions. KFN Hillside Nominee Realty Trust, 24 Willis Lane, Falmouth, Mass. DEP number 25-4633, requesting a 3-year extension. Alyssa.
Thank you. Yes, the applicant is requesting a 3-year extension. The staff is recommending a 1-year, simply because typically we see a 3-year extension come with, beach nourishment projects or maintenance projects, big invasive species removal projects. Though this is a very large home that's being built with lots of restoration and a couple other existing orders on the site, it might be more prudent to see where their progress is in 1 year, and then we can always recommend another extension.
I agree with that. All right. Questions or comments?
I'll make a
All right,
motion to continue this.
No.
No, to
Extension. Extend it.
to extend it 1 year. To extend this
Bird
permit
second.
1 year.
Bird
All right,
second.
thank you. Everybody clear on that? They're
Yes.
requesting a 3-year extension. We're going to vote to give them a 1-year extension, and then we can always reevaluate. All right, so we're voting on a 1-year extension.
Without
Betsy.
prejudice.
Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have granted a 1-year extension. Next request to extend an existing order of conditions, 188 Gansett Road Realty Trust, 188 Gansett Road, Falmouth, Mass. DEP number 25-4644, requesting a 3-year extension. Alyssa?
For similar reasons, staff recommends a 1-year extension.
Bird, so moved.
Carla Hawk second.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, why are they requesting an extension?
I admit it doesn't give too much of an explanation other than to complete the work.
Okay.
I wish I had more details for you. Sorry.
Has the work started?
Oh, yes. Yes, it's begun.
Another excuse to go out and visit?
Sure it is, Steve.
All right. So we have a motion and a second on the table to grant a 1-year extension. Everybody clear on that? All right, we're voting on a 1-year extension. Betsy,
And Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
and Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have granted a 1-year extension. Next up, vote orders of conditions. And we have one, Stefanos Bubelis, 43 Miami Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. Now, the quorum excludes Kevin, Steve, and Ron. So you guys can take off if you want to, or you can hang around. Anyway, and if you're going to take off, I'll just remind you there's no meeting next week. All right. Alyssa.
Thank you. Yes, so this project is for a partial second-story addition to the existing structure. As spoken about last time, we did receive a letter from an architect confirming it can withstand that weight. They are reconstructing the existing deck to the side of the house and the rinse station in the same footprint while enlarging the covered entry in the front yard. So there is a mitigation requirement. During the hearing process, they acknowledge there is a salt marsh on the property, so the buffers have been revised, which has also enlarged the mitigation requirement. There was some confusion about the fence in between this property and the property to the north. I've talked with both of the engineers and that has been resolved, so it's actually on the other property and was permitted by an RDA in 2012. I hadn't done any research on that property since that wasn't the one on the hearing, so we all learned something there. There is a bare area in the buffer that will also be revegetated. They revised the mitigation to reflect plantings that you more commonly approve. And I think that sums it up.
All right. Comments, additions? Betsy?
I have no comments.
Okay. Courtney?
This was the one where I was going around and around about the structural engineer versus the architect and.
Can I clarify
Yeah,
that?
go ahead.
We've always accepted a letter from a registered. I had a conversation with the building commissioner and they accept, in similar circumstances, they accept a letter from either a structural engineer or a registered architect. And that's the key part, is registered. And this was GM Petro, so he is a registered architect.
Okay. It's funny how this changes. Back a few years that they oftentimes would require, even with a registered architect, they'd require a structural engineer. I'm talking about the Falmouth Building Department, so things all change.
Yeah. All right, Maury.
I just had one question about the shed that it's a B zone and that it's 101 square feet, so they only have 99 square feet in the future to do any improvements in the V zone.
Good point.
even though it's been there.
Well, it was there without a permit, right? We don't know if it was.
Right. I mean, it goes back to at least in the 90s photos. I'm not sure when we started requiring permits for those. And there's a very large gap between the photos, so I'm not really sure when it got there.
That was just my opinion. It doesn't have to be in there. If everybody's fine with the shed, fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it has been there for a long time.
Okay.
When did the 25-foot buffer zone come into play? Falmouth buffer zone. Anybody know?
25 foot? It's
Yeah.
100 foot. It's 100-foot
No.
buffer zone.
No, no.
The velocity zone offset.
Oh,
The
oh, oh.
velocity zone.
It's
Oh,
as long
probably
as
it
I've
was
been
after
on.
that. Yeah, it was after that though. Jamie,
2015, I think.
in the 90s.
No, it's prior to that, Steve.
Oh, okay, that's just the addition that I got.
Yeah, it's been on at least since 2004.
Okay.
Yeah. It was before that too, I think.
All right, so we're good.
So it could be, it's probably was put there legally.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
We'll erase that condition then. Thank you, Jamie.
It's a tough one. Like I said, some of these are gray areas and you try to find a way to see one way or the other.
Yeah, Alyssa's usually on the other side, so you ought to listen to her, and I'm not on this quorum, so shut up.
Always
So I'll
happy to
make-
hear your voice, Steve.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Maury.
Hello, Hawk's Eye.
All right, it is unanimous. With this quorum, we have issued an order of conditions. And again, a reminder to the reminder, there's no meeting next week, except for Kevin. He has to attend anyway. He's
But it's 7. It's 7 in the morning, isn't it, next week?
Yeah, right.
All right,
I
last
make a-
motion.
Make a motion to adjourn, Harlow Hawks.
Bird second.
Gladfelter, aye.
Bird eye. Who's next?
Kevin.
Jamie,
Kevin.
I guess you need me for something. O'Brien,
Harlow Hawk's Eye.
Driscoll eye.
nah.
It is unanimous.
We
We're
didn't hear
adjourned.
you, Jamie.
See you all in a couple weeks.
See y'all.